My name is Chris. I'm the owner of Rocketman Tech. We host this LaunchPad meetup every month where we go over the latest Jamf and Apple updates and have a keynote presenter. Unfortunately, today I am going to be your keynote presenter. Usually we get someone more famous and better looking, but you're stuck with me today. So today I'm going to talk about what's behind the Jamf ID. My name is Christopher Schasse again. I'm the owner at Rocketman Tech. If you just joined now, this is going to be a pretty interactive presentation. So I'm going to go through and talk about some of these new features that is available through the Jamf ID. That's Blueprints, compliance, as well as the Jamf Assistant. But I'm going to give some time for audience to give their thoughts about these different features. And so this will be more of an open discussion than necessarily me talking. And let me talk about first the requirements for these features. Biggest thing is you need a Jamf cloud hosted server. So if you're on-prem, you're not going to be able to get any of these new features that are coming out. Also, a Jamf ID login is required. As I'll point out later, it's really a Jamf account login, and we'll get into how that works. This third one is pretty important too. It's not currently available for Premium Cloud Plus or state ramp environments. So if you're one of those customers that purchased one of those things or is really like needing a state ramp environment for compliance, it's not currently available now. I don't know, anyone from Jamf can maybe point out in the comments if that is coming, but I'm guessing based on the fact that it's probably built a specific way, there's probably a good reason it's not able to accommodate these environments. So I don't know if I'd imagine it's coming soon. And if it's really coming at all for any of these new features. So something to keep in mind if you're in one of those compliance criteria situations. But before we talk about what's behind the Jamf ID, I think we need to talk a bit about what this Jamf ID is. Mike just commented that state ramp should be okay, which is a big deal if that is okay. So we'll hear back from you on that one. And like I said before, I really should have said the Jamf account, not the Jamf ID, because when it comes down to it, Jamf ID is only one of the authentication methods you can use for this. You can also create an OIDC authentication method with your Jamf account, so you can still authenticate with Entra, Okta, or any identity provider that you use. So a couple of caveats with this. You cannot have both SAML and Jamf ID login with Jamf Pro. You can only use one or the other. So if you want to get these new features, you have to migrate everything over to this Jamf account login. You can integrate that again with your identity provider. But when you use the failover URL, you won't have access to those new features like Blueprints, compliance, or the Jamf AI Assistant. So these are the identity providers that are supported through that OIDC integration with Jamf, with the Jamf account. And a couple more things about this. It integrates, again, directly with your Jamf account, not with Jamf Pro. So if you're doing that Entra integration with your Jamf account, it's going to be different than the Jamf Pro integration. You can still have the Jamf Pro SAML integration for users specifically when they enroll computers or do self-service login. But for the Jamf Pro admin console, it has to go through the Jamf account. To do this, you need to add a DNS TXT record to your email domain. So like our domain is chris@rocketman.tech. So rocketman.tech, which is what I log into through Okta, needs to be verified, and you have to have access to that DNS record. So that's a big barrier for a lot of people. I haven't tried setting up groups. I hear it's possible but difficult, so wanted to point that out. If you want to do like Entra or Okta groups or something like that, in order to put your service desk into a group to give specific Jamf Pro access. Why do we have this Jamf ID requirement in the first place? And that really talks around what Jamf is doing. Word on the street is this is a new back-end microservices architecture, so it's different than just Tomcat and MySQL, which is what Jamf Pro is built on. So I think it's easiest to think of this as like a whole separate server that's kind of inside of the Jamf server. This allows them to do a much more robust mono integrations with DDM, which is like the new type of MDM. And I think the biggest thing is this requirement's not going to go away. This is the future of where Jamf Pro is going. And it's going to continue to go in this direction, as far as I know and what I believe. So you're probably going to need to get on this bandwagon at some point. They'll probably bring more features with this Jamf account integration, but I don't think they're going to ever go away with it completely. So now that we've talked about what the Jamf ID is and what the Jamf account is, let's dive in to talk about blueprints, the first thing we're going to talk about here. So I have a video here of just going through blueprints so you can see what it looks like if you haven't been able to connect this to your server yet. So essentially blueprints are the same as configuration profiles, except it's using DDM over MDM. Now, as you'll see here, there's a lot of stuff that's similar to what you can do with configuration profiles, but there's also a lot of things that are different or just features that you weren't able to do before. One of the things that is the same is the passcode policy. So this looks, as far as I can tell, exactly the same as when you set it up in a configuration profile, right? But I'm going to give you an example of something that's a little bit different. Software updates. So this looks a lot different than anything we get through a configuration profile. You can actually select the date and time of the update, target a specific OS version, and even put some details in a web page. And in this, I tried to do 26, which did not work. But you know, if I do 15.6, it works. And in this video, I took a long time to do that. And then this also works together with software updates. Now this looks similar to the software update portion of configuration profiles, except it allows you to do things like deferrals, which is kind of nice. So some things are the same, some things are different. You can kind of bundle this together into a profile, very similar to configuration profiles. One of the weird things is they have this quick start part, which is really just individual components of what we just saw before. So it's not like it bundles a bunch of stuff together. It's just like little separate components here. But that's blueprints within Jamf Pro. So now I want to say, what are your thoughts on this? Feel free to throw a question into the Q&A part, and maybe the Rocketman people can help me because I have a hard time managing my windows while I'm sharing. Or free to speak up if you have any thoughts and been using this feature. Adam, you had a question saying, or just a comment, I failed to see the difference between software updates using DDM and blueprints. Feel free to elaborate on that if you want to unmute your mic. Also, Tiffany, do these features plan on being extended to government cloud hosted? That is an amazing question that I think a lot of people are wondering right now. I hope so. I think that needs to happen at some point.
Yeah,
Oh, go
thanks for
ahead, Adam.
taking the question. So the way we use it, and I actually deployed 15.6 this way today, is in Jamf Pro. Go to software updates and select an install date, select a version, and then push that out. And so that's already using DDM to do it.
Yeah, gotcha. Can
And
you
so
select the date and
blueprints,
time though?
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
you can select the date and time too.
Yeah, you've
Gotcha.
been able to do that for a while. So, I mean, I guess blueprints are just a different UI for it that some people would be more comfortable with. I just don't see the difference under the hood.
Yeah, I thought weren't able to do the date and time. I hadn't actually fooled around with that feature in a while. So yeah, it's probably the same because both of those are DDM. I think a lot of the differences you'll see with some of these settings is a lot of stuff like there's calculator stuff you could do, calculator settings. I'm not sure how important that is, but that's something that I don't think is available through configuration profiles, at least.
Hi,
Mhm.
Chris. Hi, Adam. So, just because I wrote one of the original blog posts on doing all of this stuff, and I know Chris and I were discussing this a bit last night. This is all definitely a new backend on Jamf. This is, if you're reading the tea leaves, this is definitely the way that all of this stuff is going. Yes, you're right in terms of pushing these controls out through DDM. The end result is the same. You know, a DDM is advertised, the devices pick it up, they do what they need to do. It's just that the back end architecture of how all of this is happening, not just the UI, seems to be changing. I don't have any special knowledge on that, but there's definitely new stuff in there.
So they're just kind of walking us into it slowly. That's kind
Yeah,
of what I expected.
that's my take on the thing. The thing that I posted in the chat earlier is the one thing you got to watch out for is that there is this thing called user channel, and some of these controls are basically it's like user level MDM. If you remember back in the days of user approved MDM, well, you've got the same thing coming with PSSO as well. So some of this stuff is not immediately accessible. And I got a break because I've just got a phone call coming in. Sorry.
Thanks.
Cool. Next, I see a question from Bruce on here. Bruce, do you mind if I share what organization you work for?
That's fine, Chris. I think several people here already know anyway.
Perfect. Bruce works for Notre Dame, and he's asking, basically, he doesn't want to mess with integrating Okta, and what's the alternative for doing this? And specifically, you know, for your organization, because I know you have a lot of members that have access to Jamf Pro, probably like 150. And I would say there's not an alternative, because the alternative would be you set up Jamf IDs for every single person that's logging into Jamf Pro, and they would have to set those up individually. So that is not a realistic situation to have all of those help desk folks and everyone accessing Jamf Pro to be able to do that. So until you're able to integrate Okta with your Jamf account and verify your domain, which would be the Notre Dame account, this isn't going to be a possibility. So this is a big hang up for a lot of people. It's a big hang up for a lot of our clients, because that's a lot of stuff to be able to do. And once you flip that switch, you can't, like, it's all on or all off. Like once you flip it over, it's like all the users have to log in with that Jamf ID or with the Jamf account. So that's the biggest hang up for everyone, is the fact that we need to change the integration from this SSO integration we set up, or the SAML integration, to the new type of Jamf account integration. And I wanted to, I forgot to throw the video on here, but there was a video of logging in through that. It's not the same. So even if you set up your Okta account, it's not going to be the same user experience as it with SAML login, where you go to the Okta window. It's essentially, you're going to type in your email to the Jamf account window, but then it's doing the authentication in the back end with Okta or Entra or wherever. But you're not going to see the splash screen when you log into Jamf Pro.
Okay, that's actually all good information that I can take to our IAM group.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're overloaded with other stuff that they don't want to mess with our stuff right now. And I'm kind of saying, you know, we need to have this happen so we can get into these new features. So thank you.
Yeah, it's going to need to happen at some point. Probably doesn't need to happen today, but yes, it's something at some point. Jamf's going to continue to build this stuff into Jamf Pro. I'm going to keep moving forward, but I can't really see the chat very well. So anyone on the Rocketman team that wants to interrupt me and say, hey, we want to talk about this, feel free to do that at any time. Okay, we're going to talk through compliance. This is probably the most exciting feature that people saw at JNUC, and we're going to dive in to see what it looks like right now. Okay, so this, unlike Blueprints, this is actually what I expected Blueprints to be a bit more like. So Blueprints is kind of a completely separate component. Compliance seems like something that's able to set up all of this stuff within Jamf Pro, policies, configurations, all of that. Right now, we're going through all the different rules that are being set up with this CIS level tool. In this example, I'm just doing all of them so you can see what's happening. But you can see here, it's setting up configuration profiles, it's setting up scripts, it even creates a category that it puts everything in. So this component is basically just doing a bunch of API calls in Jamf Pro. There's nothing being set up outside of Jamf Pro except kind of this dashboard that we're able to look at everything with. So if you look here in the management settings, you can get a link to every setting that's happening. And then if you dive in, you're actually looking at the policy that's being deployed, and you can edit that policy and everything through Jamf Pro in any way you want to. Here's an example of a custom config profile that was created. And then it even has reporting on how many computers are in compliance for all the settings that you set. Right now, I have no computer scope to this, so it says 0 for everything. And then you can even change some of this stuff if you want to. So I can uncheck certain things if I want to turn them off for any reason, or change some of the numbers of days or anything like that in there. And that'll make changes to the policies, configs, whatever was set within Jamf Pro. And then if you want to, you can even delete this whole thing. And just think of this like an API agent that's just writing a bunch of commands to create these settings through Jamf Pro.
But other than that, it's awesome.
Yeah. Something that Everett pointed out, which I will reiterate, this is going to create a lot of stuff, especially if you did what I did, was just check everything. Please don't do that. Make sure you know what you're turning on and off. And it is going to create a lot of configs in your server. So do it in a test server first, just understand what's happening. But like, I literally set up like 200 different things within Jamf Pro by just doing that couple of keystrokes. So something to keep in mind. Compliance, I think it's just Mac OS. I was kind of running through it pretty quick, but I'm fairly certain the compliance is just the Mac OS CIS benchmarks. But someone correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
No, you're correct.
So the biggest difference, to answer your question, Anthony, with Jamf Pro and Jamf Protect is just monitoring stuff. It's not doing any implementation of anything, at least when it comes to the CIS benchmarks. Whereas this stuff, the CIS compliance stuff, does that monitoring and actually enabling different things. So it's actually going to make changes in your server. So much different. They kind of built the Jamf Protect thing first, and now they have this new way of doing it. So I would say, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but the Jamf Pro compliance does everything that Jamf Protect does. But Jamf Protect doesn't do any of the enforcement, so it does not do everything that you can through compliance in Jamf Pro.
Yeah, I know that, fully aware of that. But I don't know if anybody else who's been testing CIS, or more so who's implemented CIS, runs into, excuse me, the issue that I have, which is I have a fair amount, like everybody else, of configuration profiles in place already on the endpoints. And because CIS is now requesting management over the same domain keys, it's a failure. I get failures, like a fair amount.
Really?
Yeah. And I spoke with SE at Jamf about it, and he said, basically that's going to happen. It's, quote, unexpected behavior when you have multiple domain management requests coming. And unlike Blueprints, it doesn't supersede something that's already in place, which is too bad, because other than CIS, I've never really had issues with multiple keys for a single domain. They just merge, going all the way back to AE, schema stuff. But I just wanted to put that out.
I mean,
there.
I've definitely seen issues with different keys doing the same thing. So I've always just been best practice is only have one configuration profile per key, so you don't, or per plist essentially, so you're not running into any issues with conflicting profiles. Is that because, Adam, you have Jamf Protect with Jamf Pro doing this, or is that because you have some other configurations you had set up that are now conflicting with all these CIS configuration profiles that got set up?
Yeah, it's the latter for sure. You know what I mean?
So-
For instance, one of them is the screensaver timeout. I mean, we've had that in place for years. And because CIS wants just the baseline is 20 minutes, we do 30. So I'm getting a red flag on that. But the CIS enforcement won't supersede the 30 that's in place. So I get a flag. The only way to do it is, I found this out just by testing, is to exclude the existing screensaver profile, let CIS do it, and then put it back on, and then it's okay. But it's just, I mean, you can see the nightmare, which is, I mean, I admittedly, I use way too many configuration profiles, I think, but I want the environment to be a specific way. And I'm going to have to go through all of them and find the specific domain conflicts. And yeah, if it was a little bit better organized, sure, it would be easier. But you know what I mean? I lump things together, like PPPC, for instance, it's all lumped together. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But
Mhm.
on a side note, not to take up too much time, I do apologize. But on the side note, I was using the Jamf AI chat pretty heavily with this, and I typed it all of the configuration in use on an endpoint. And I said, look through this and tell me where the conflicts are. And it actually did it. So I actually have a starting place of which configuration profiles with which domains will conflict with each other. So it gave me, look at this one, this one, this one, which was kind of cool. So
Well, okay, so I have a question with that. Was that so when you had it look at it, did you have to give it all the configuration profiles?
yeah, and I actually had a discussion with it about that because I was under the under the impression that it was able to look into your instance now
Yeah.
because there is an approval to look in your instance, but I asked it, it said no, I can't do that.
Yeah, we'll get into that once we get to the AI assistant part.
Cool.
But yeah, I can't look at configuration profiles or policies or anything like that.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to move on. We got a lot of good discussion coming in here, but I want to make sure we get through the rest of the presentation as well. But keep throwing your stuff in the chat. We're keeping up with it. Lastly, we're going to talk about Jamf Assistants, and I put assistants in here because there's several different ones now. When we first started planning this presentation, it was just the Jamf AI Assistant, and now we have the Jamf Support AI Assistant. So there's kind of three different assistants I'm going to talk about today. The Jamf AI Assistant through the Jamf Pro portal, which is slightly different than the Jamf AI Assistant through your Jamf account. That's account.jamf.com. And then we're also going to talk about Jamf's new AI support agent. So let's talk about AI through the Jamf support portal. So this is the only one of the three AIs where it is only available with that Jamf ID or that Jamf account login. If you don't have that set up or you're logging in through a failover URL, you will not be able to use it. It's built to reference external Jamf documentation to answer questions. And I'll say that's probably where it kind of works best. Cannot make any edits to your Jamf Pro server. So if you tell it to go ahead and build a policy, a configuration, or something like that, it's not going to be able to do that. It cannot make any direct edits to your server. It is able to reference your inventory information. So as Adam pointed out before, it can't reference your configs or anything like that, but it can reference your inventory, which I'll show you how that works. It cannot access any sensitive information, so you're not going to be able to grab a recovery key for a computer or anything like that. Any of that encrypted information that you have to click a button in order to get, that's not going to be accessible through Jamf AI. And it cannot access Jamf components outside of your inventory, policies, configs, things like that, packages, anything outside of the direct inventory for the computers, it does not have access to. So let's take a look at this in practice. So I've done a couple examples here. First, I'm going to ask it to create a smart group for me to scope to computers with broken recovery keys. It does take a while to think. Something to keep in mind, I'm clearly speeding this up. But if you can see here, it will tell me which criteria to use. This isn't necessarily how I build it, but this should still work. It didn't tell you about the parentheses with the ORs, but for the most part, it works pretty well. Next, I asked it, sorry, I should probably speed this down a little bit. I asked it to create a profile that will change the accent color to orange for macOS. And let's see what it does here. So it tells me to create a custom schema with this JSON here, which is not going to work. And this is one word of warning I wanted to give to people. If Jamf's AI assistant is telling you to do any custom configuration profiles, chances are it's probably not going to work. Jamf's AI assistant, I think, is best built for referencing Jamf documentation or doing stuff through the Jamf GUI. From my experience, anytime it did any custom stuff like this, it didn't work really well. If you're using other AI systems, like we use ChatGPT to do a lot of that stuff, it's probably going to work a little bit better when making custom configs. But honestly, be pretty careful with making custom configuration profiles in general, especially if they're referencing any Apple plists, because a lot of that stuff, even if they get it 100% right, just isn't going to work because it's protected by SIP. So, just word of caution, if it's telling you to do stuff through the GUI, go ahead, test it out, and test it out pretty well. It'll say on the bottom here, AI can make mistakes. Jamf recommends double checking provided information. Definitely double check everything you do. Don't take everything it says with a grain of salt. Like any of these generative AI systems, they're, somewhat accurate at best. So this is where I'm referencing the inventory information on the computer. And I asked it to give me a list of all the apps I have installed on my computers and tell me exactly how many computers have that app installed. This is actually kind of useful because you can kind of do this through Jamf Pro, but it gives you it groups it by version number and it becomes a little bit hard to look at. So this was actually able to table the results in a way that was a lot easier to read and tell me exactly how many computers had each one of these applications. And it grouped them into different stuff. And then anytime you finish talking to an AI agent, make sure you say thank you so that when the computer overlords take over, they'll treat you kindly. Okay, next I want to talk about AI through the Jamf account. Now this is essentially the same, except it doesn't require a Jamf ID login. So if you're not able to get that requirement set in place, no worries, you can still use the AI through the Jamf account. It's exactly the same as it is through the Jamf Pro portal, with one key difference: it can't access any device information. So you won't be able to do that last command that I just said. But if you just need to do general queries and stuff like that, you can still use your Jamf account to do all that Jamf AI Assistant stuff. Again, I think really the most useful part of this is to be able to reference that Jamf documentation and not necessarily create a bunch of custom stuff, because like most AIs, it's not going to be 100% correct all the time. And when it comes down to it, my opinion, some of the other more advanced AI languages like ChatGPT or whatever you use is probably going to work better for anything you're trying to do. But if it's Jamf specific stuff, especially documentation you're looking at, it's going to work pretty well. So I'll bring it to the audience again. What are your thoughts on the Jamf AI Assistant? Has anyone been using this very much? Yes, it's also, beta, which is another thing to point out. Has anyone had any good luck, bad lucks, some crazy stories with AI? Yeah, and Andrew, I have not tested this in an environment with thousands of computers. Unfortunately, the clients we have with thousands of computers are really hung up on that Jamf ID requirement. So I'm having to test it on my 13 computer server. Like with most of this stuff, I think if you're going to rely on this AI assistant, you're probably going to have a lot of issues, right? This stuff's getting better over time, but it's still got a lot of inaccuracies, especially when you try to do really hyper-specific stuff. That's hard to Google.
Hi, Chris. I have a question about Jamf
Yeah.
ID. To your knowledge, is this something that is going to impact the endpoint? Will it impact management of the endpoint? Is there something visible to the user?
Nope.
Or is this mostly for administrative purposes to the Jamf console and beyond?
Yeah, so there's one key thing I should point out. I'm going to get out of my slides for a second, come back to this, because this is the important part. So see that use SAML authentication for end users. If you have that checked, your end users on your Macs will not notice any difference. If you don't check that, now everything changes to a Jamf ID login, and yes, your users will see a huge difference. I would always recommend checking that second one if you already have SAML integrated in your server, because that SAML login is going to be what everyone's used to, right? So no need to change that. But yeah, as long as you do that, your end users will have zero impact at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, make sure you check that though, or you're going to run into some problems. Anyone else have any thoughts on Jamf's AI assistant?
I don't have one on the AI assistant, but I did have just a follow-up on I guess if I'm logging in as a Jamf ID as an admin, that's great, but I'm just trying to make sure, I'm trying to clarify how that affects, say, my support team, who we actually have set up in two different tiered of permissions. Basically, we have two AD groups. Actually, they're coming from Microsoft Entra ID, so I'm just using AD kind of interchangeably here. But we have two AD groups. One is just a basic read only, so they can go in and look stuff up, look up things on computers, grab a Lapse account, passwords, whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's a higher level where these guys actually can make a few changes. So I'm just wondering, how does that affect it? I mean, if it doesn't, I think someone answered me earlier to the extent that it doesn't really do it, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand how that actually works.
Yeah. So once you set up the Jamf account integration, I shouldn't call it the Jamf ID because it's really the Jamf account integration.
Right.
All of your Jamf Pro logins go through that Jamf account. And there's two ways to do that. Either you say, hey, I'm going to set up Jamf IDs for everyone, which in your situation, I would say is probably not the way to go. Or you're going to say, I'm going to integrate my identity provider with my Jamf account now, which I'm going to link to a bunch of documentation after
Great.
this. I haven't put that together yet, but I'll send that off to everyone after this call. So everyone can access that, because there's a lot of documentation on Jamf on how to set up that integration. Groups, like I mentioned before, is a little difficult to set up. I haven't actually gone through that, but from going through the Jamf forums and stuff, it's a little bit difficult, but it is possible. So you can set up those different Entra or Okta groups or whatever you're using for your identity provider. So you'll need to set up that integration on the Jamf account side before turning that on, or all those help desk people are going to lose access.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they can still log into Jamf Pro the same way they always have been, or if there's going to be a change, I just want to be able to.
It's going to be a change either way, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not going to be going to your splash screen anymore, like your Entra or Okta splash screen. It's going to go to like the Jamf account page, and then they'll enter their email, and then it will authenticate with your identity provider.
We have not yet. Because somebody always comes along and sticks a freaking wrench in my, process, comes along with some dumbass thing they're trying to do. But I'm sorry. But we have not been able to actually fully integrate Microsoft Entra ID into Jamf Pro and use single SSO. We have done so on a test server. So I know how that works, and it works beautifully. That's all set up. And so in that case, these guys on the support staff logging into that, they've been able to get in just fine. In fact, I used exactly the same AD group in the test Jamf Pro server, and those guys were able to get in, and they had their permissions that they were supposed to have.
Yeah.
I guess
Mike
one of
just
the first
dropped
steps is to get us fully integrated with the Entra ID in production at some point.
Yeah. Mike just dropped some documentation on how to set up those roles and privileges through your Jamf.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Take a look at that. Everett, I see that you have a question.
Unless something has changed, for at least for Entra, when people get really confused between an IDP provider and the Jamf ID that's integrated with Entra. And so we have not been able to make it work where we have, even on a test server, where we have a Entra integrated with the OIDC on the Jamf account, and then you try to go and turn on the service on the Jamf Pro side. The groups there would not work for us. So if somebody's got specific documentation on using that with Entra, which is not in that Jamf link, I would love to see it.
So this is Rob. I apologize. I can't find the raise hand, so I'm going to just step in. Great. I was going to bring up the issue with groups as well. From what I understand from talking to Jamf and through other things, the issue is the SAML claims only will pass so many groups in the SAML claim. So if you have lots, like most of us probably do, hundreds, thousands of groups, your group, you're probably not passing all the groups that your users are a member of. One of the things I've seen is if your IDP provider can filter the groups that's passed in the claim, you might be able to do that if you, for example, could filter like Jamf Star or something. So it passes. But that assumes that your groups are well named, which ours is not. So we're kind of stuck with the same thing. We can't integrate because we can't pass the group membership.
Yeah, that might be what I'm running into, but again, we had it all working with the identity provider, but with SAML stuff, but like somebody said earlier, but not once we flipped over.
Yeah.
Cool. A lot of great discussion here, but we have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to move forward to talk through the last portion of this, which is going to be contacting Jamf support. There was a change a couple weeks ago, and if you contacted Jamf support in the last couple weeks, you probably noticed this. If you're on a Jamf support basic plan, all requests start with Jamf's AI support agent. So instead of going through the support portal and filling out the ticket information and all that, you start with chatting with the Jamf AI support agent. Word on the street is that premium support has the ability to skip that and just open a ticket directly. And if you're on premium platinum, you have a dedicated rep you can reach out to. The Reddit rumor, take that with a grain of salt, is that this is an intercom embedded AI called FIM. I don't really know what that means. I'm not in this whole AI chatbot world, but that's the word on the street. I don't know if it's correct, but I thought I'd share it with the group if anyone found that to be interesting. I'm going to give you a quick example of kind of what this looks like. This is a fake ticket that I'm making, but I'm really doing it. So I just open this up and I say I'm having issues with my ADCS connector. It asks me which product I'm on and then asks me to pick a product feature. There's a bunch of these to go into. I ended up picking client certificates. It asked me to get some better idea of what this is like. Clearly I make these videos way too fast, but clearly I'm speeding this up a lot. This video was like 7 minutes long, so I didn't want to have everyone wait 7 minutes while I went through this. But I'm just explaining my issue. It brings up a bunch of troubleshooting steps. In this case, I'm saying it didn't. I'm still experiencing the issue. It told me a bunch of stuff to look at, like searching the Jamf logs for different things. Then it gave me this. I go back and forward and say, oh, I looked at that, didn't find it. Gave me another list of things. I've confirmed the template name is correct, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of back and forward that we go through this process. So eventually I say I'd like to connect with someone from the support team. And then they say, certainly, what do you need? Blah, blah, blah. And it says, I still need help. So it asked me for some logs and stuff. And then I asked it what logs it needs. And it asked me, did this answer your question, or do you still need help from someone? No, I still need help. And then finally it told me to go to a person. Okay, so the way it works, you go through the chatbot experience. Once you get to a point where they didn't answer your question, then it will send an email to your account. And then you'll see this ticket gets raised, saying that a ticket's been opened for you. And then you'll get an email from someone at Jamf. That person will reach out with the typical stuff that you see when you open support tickets or just email support@jamf.com, where they'll say like, hey, we need all these logs, right? So that's kind of the process now for opening tickets. You go through this AI chatbot, it'll chat with you for a while. Hopefully it answers your question. If it doesn't, you're gonna go through those prompts and you'll get an email back from someone at Jamf once you go through that. If you are like not wanting to go through this AI chatbot, I know one of our engineers, Hugo, just keeps spamming like, I need to speak to a human. And that typically works pretty quick too. If you just want to get an email from an actual human, and then they'll email you with that response. With that, I'll reach out to the audience. For anyone that has used it, what are your thoughts on Jamf's new AI support portal?
I've actually had a couple of tickets opened by pure coincidence. I think the day that this actually went live, or maybe it started the day before. So I saw the before and after effects of not only me getting used to it, but the engineers themselves kind of fumbling through it with me. It was kind of a strange coincidence too that both cases I opened through the agent ended up being PIs. So I've been on the horn with these guys for a fairly long time, trying to help their dev team for Jamf Connect specifically fix some stuff. And so the one engineer that I talked to the most, his name's Justin. He did confirm it is thin intercom, as you were saying. I don't know a lot about that, but he used those words quite a bit to describe it. And now that I've used it a while, I'm kind of used to it and I don't mind it. But the initial starting the conversation, of course, is sort of kind of insulting, as you dig through all of the canned responses. But now that I'm in it, it's great, or not great, it's acceptable. But my inbox, my Exchange inbox, I've probably got in the last few weeks with these two cases, I would not exaggerate. I've got over 500 emails that are automated from the AI engine, just constantly telling me they're working for me and helping me constantly over and over and over. He knows that. He said that his team knows that. So that's going to get fixed a little bit, but that's all I have to share.
Cool. Trying to keep up with the chats a little bit. Yeah, Tiffany says you can't see any tickets opened by the phone. I know there's once you chat with the AI support person, I think those chats just kind of get thrown into the darkness sometimes, from what I've heard. But yeah, feel free to speak up, anyone, if you want to chime in and give your thoughts on this.
Seems like starting a ticket is frustrating, but once the ticket is open, the chatting back and forth with the agent or engineer that's picked up your ticket has gone pretty well for us anyways. The interface for like looking and working on multiple tickets isn't great. I've had conversations, or I've started conversations when I think I was talking to an agent on one ticket and they thought I was talking about another one, things like that. But it's evolving, I suppose.
Yeah, cool. That's good. So essentially, the AI chatbot is maybe not your favorite, but when you get talking to a representative, it sounds like you get quicker help, which is nice.
Yeah, the Jamf part of the equation still works well.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts here? Yeah, I think there's definitely some weirdness with the portal itself that will hopefully get worked out over time. I think a lot of this has caught us by surprise too, because there wasn't much of a warning for it. It just happened one day when we started opening tickets. Well, we have a couple more minutes on the call. Anyone can give their thoughts about stuff. I know people are dropping off now. One thing I will say, I will have some follow-up resources for this. I was kind of at the wire putting together the presentation, so I didn't put the follow-up resources together yet, but we'll send an email out to everyone on this call so you can get the follow-up resources, because there's a lot of good documentation through Jamf and other people's blogs on setting all this stuff up, especially if you're trying to get this Jamf account set up. One of the biggest roadblocks for a lot of people. All right, with that, we are 2 minutes over, so I'm going to let you all go and have a great Friday. Thanks for attending. We'll see you all next month. Thank you for joining us today. We have new episodes on the first Friday of every month. If you'd like to join our session live, visit the link in the description to get on our mailing list. And if you're looking to get the most out of your Jamf server, visit rocketman.tech to set up a meeting with one of our Jamf experts. That's rocketman.tech.